Okay. Good morning, everyone. We're honored to have you here at the ninth edition of Digital Africa. My name is Emmanuel Otori, and I am going to be moderating this very session. For this very panel session, we will be discussing startups and venture capital,
Venture capital
using the future
using
of
the
tech
future of tech
innovation.
in Africa.
So we are
So
pleased to
we're
have
pleased to have
very
very
experienced.
experienced.
So I think we would like to work on the audio. We have some echo. Okay, I think that's been fixed. So we have resource persons that are going to be that will engage us in this panel session, so we can have very insightful discussions around startups and venture capital. So we have Philip Seboli Masango. I hope you will correct me eventually on how to make the right pronunciations for your name. He's the lead founder and chief executive officer at Eclipse Hub Proprietary Limited. He's also a member of the Strategic Intelligence with the World Economic Forum. We have Dr. Larry Phillips, Enterprise Sales Manager at HP Central Africa. And we have Nkoyo Veronica. She's the co-founder. She's a facilitator and mentor at Insightful Solutions and Talented Space. We're pleased to have Dr. Larry here. We're pleased to have you, Philip. I can't see Nkoyo. We're hoping she will join us, hopefully, in the middle of this. So I was asking Philip at the backstage to tell us about the startup environment in South Africa. It's something I think we would like that you share with our audience. We know that we have seen many reports that talks about the growth of startups and venture capital, most especially in Africa. And whenever we have this conversation, you will find out that there are very few countries that are at the forefront. We see Nigeria, we see South Africa, we see Kenya, we see Egypt at the forefront of driving the growth in startup innovation. So we would like to hear your conversation, Philip, about what the startup environment holds for South Africa. What are the challenges? What has been the growth in the past years? And what will be the future for the coming years? We would like you to take a bit of time to tell us about this.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually very excited about this because I think South Africa is mostly underrated. But when we go to try and calculate how many startups we have in South Africa, we learn that Cape Town has the most tech startups out of the whole continent, followed by Kenya and Nigeria. So our startup ecosystem is very interesting in a way that over the past few years we've seen multinational corporates coming down to South Africa, especially Stellenbosch and Cape Town, to try and invest and harness the data that we have here because their development cost is way cheaper. And I've seen how many entrepreneurs are starting to come into the market. And we have a really good support structure. We have a lot of business incubators where even if you are a student at university, you can get the support you need to launch your startup. You can get the right professional services. You can learn how to raise funds, how to do your pitch decks. We have a good network of businesses that are coming together. One of our biggest ones that we have is the Stellenbosch network, where we take investors from different countries, we take the startups, the tech entrepreneurs, we put them in one big platform where they can interact, raise funds, learn from each other, and do some magic. And then I've seen how a lot of networks have been launched in South Africa. Like we have networks with France, we have networks in Sweden. We have a lot of networks with American companies like Tesla. Tesla just partnered with one of our biggest business network called the Silicon Cave, where we're trying to create a very tech environment where we can have support for entrepreneurs. And I've seen how over the years, we've been trying to make it easy to raise
Like
funds because
cut
the
you
biggest challenge that we
short.
have.
Hold on, Mr. Philip. If you are not speaking, please, you could mute your microphone or whatever device you are using so we don't get to interfere with the resource person who is having the stage. Thank you. Mr. Philip, please continue.
Okay, so I think the Cape Town is very interesting. I wish a lot of people can know about it because whenever I sometimes have been funds in conferences and they'll be asking, so you from South Africa, what's happening there? We don't think you guys have a lot of businesses. And the moment they learn about how we do business and how we interact with investors, they just become fascinated because Cape Town has been evolving over the past few years, and we've been trying to go out there in the world and say to them, this is what we do, and this is what we can do for you. And then for me, that excites me every time I talk about the startup ecosystem. And when it comes to corporates, for example, MTN is from South Africa, right? So we've seen how our telecom companies are trying to reach out to other countries to provide services so that people can be online and integrate into the Internet of Things. And we've seen how in the past 5 years, we've seen how the Internet of Things has been democratizing and decentralizing business services, especially online business services, where even a startup that's been run from home can outsource most of its business model to a consulting firm, which allows it to cut costs drastically. And then they can operate at the higher level with a good business strategy and a good business model. And that allows them to just maximize on profit, especially if they are in the service industry. The biggest challenge that we have is we still have entrepreneurs that are in remote areas. So it's hard to reach them. We still don't have good infrastructures that they know about, that they can join, or business networks that can allow them to be open and sell their products or services. And when it comes to raising funds, we still don't have a really good structure where we teach entrepreneurs how to do pitch decks. I read pitch decks every day. I have a venture capital fund, and it's so disappointing when people send you wet documents to raise funds. They don't have any investor skills. The financial projections are underestimated or overestimated. And when it comes to the entrepreneurial education, they take that for granted because they think, I went to business school, maybe I have an MBA, I can run a business. But entrepreneurship is more than just the skills you have. It's a mindset. And once you have that mindset, you know what kind of decisions to take. And then when it comes to teaching entrepreneurs about the habits that you need as an entrepreneur, it's also something that our educational system is foreign to. And then one of the things that we've done in South Africa for the past few years was we try to build ecosystems where we can take graduates from university. We teach them about the things they don't teach them in business school. Things like buying a business or selling a business or how to do it. And once they get a hold of that, their perspective on business changes. And they start understanding that some things you just need to attract to yourself. You don't need to go outside seeking them, especially when you become the person that you need to be so that you can attract the right people to yourself. And now it's changing because every time we have these business meetings, we need amazing people that are trying to create a support structure for the entrepreneurs so that they can tap into globalization. So, yeah.
Really great to hear how you have given us a background of what the current state of affairs is when it comes to startups and venture capital in Nigeria. I think this is a handful. Thank you so much for giving us this background about the environment in South Africa, Philip. I now on to Dr. Larry. Dr. Larry, can we see your video again? Would you say that startups are the hope of ending unemployment for Nigerians? Because one of the major challenge, one of the challenges that we face in Nigeria today is the high rates of unemployment, and not just unemployment, but unemployment that has to do with people who are young, who should be properly engaged. They're unemployed. We're not even talking about underemployment now. We're talking about unemployment. Do you think that the future to ending or reducing this gap that we have is startups?
Thank you, Emmanuel. Emmanuel, that's a no-brainer.
Your volume, please, could you increase
Okay.
the volume of your device?
Is it better now?
Yes, a little better, but it will be good if we could still have it much more audible.
Okay, just a minute then. Okay, is it better now?
Okay, I guess we'll have to go with what we have. You can continue, please.
Okay,
Fine.
okay. So I was sharing that that's a no-brainer really. Since we started getting excited about startups in this part of the world, and I'm speaking about Nigeria and Africa as a whole, despite the fact that it hasn't created the number of jobs that we would ideally want, we can't run away from the fact that
We can easily hear you. I think when you lean forward, we hear you better than when you, yes, I think when you lean forward, that's the time we hear you better. So maybe you want to maintain that position so we can hear you properly.
Okay, that's fine. Just a minute, let me.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, please. Yes, this is fantastic.
Awesome. Okay, so I was saying, really, that's a no-brainer. And like you mentioned, you said unemployment is one of the major challenges that we're going through in Nigeria. I actually think it's not one of the major challenges. I actually think it is the major challenge that we have. Unemployment has led to insecurity. Unemployment has led to high rise in crime rate. Unemployment has led to a lot of young ones being depressed. Unemployment has made a lot of people suicidal lately. Some of the people have actually even had to mentor. I've had direct impact of this menace. So yes, are we moving in the right direction? Yes. Are we there yet? Probably no. We probably are not where the likes of South Africa and Kenya and Mauritius are in terms of the growth of startups, but at least we're not where we used to be. The exciting thing also is that if we look at it from the African context, okay, there's so much going on in Africa right now. By 2020, Africa housed 7 of the world's fastest growing economies, and that's why the whole world is looking to Africa, as the future. So to go back to answering your question, yes, startups will take us out of unemployment in this part of the world. Have we started to do it? Yes. Are we there yet? No. But we need to keep on course. What I, however, see is the governance around startups. So there's a lot that we need to do around the governance around startups, especially in Nigeria, to catch up with what the likes of South Africa and Kenya and Mauritius has been doing. Emmanuel, I hope that answers your question.
That. Now, I will come back to Philip. Now, we have a philanthropist in Nigeria. He's from Nigeria, Tony Elumelu, the Chief Executive Officer of the United Bank for Africa. And he came up with a word called Afri-capitalism. And that's because he probably has discovered that majority of startups in Nigeria or even in Africa do not have the needed capital to scale their ideas from conceptualization to building the products or services and then offer it in the marketplace. Do you think this is a fantastic idea that we have businesses built by Africans and for Africans?
Yes, I do really think that's a great idea. I last year I ventured into venture capitalism full time, and I learned about the concept of philanthropic capitalism. And I think that's a great idea because when you for example, in South Africa, when you do early stage funding or seed funding, it's very hard to find that, especially if you can't afford to have an MVP to go and raise funds with it. So one of the major causes of failures in the startup ecosystem is that most people don't have seed funding. You might go through a business incubator, which is a great idea, but the moment you don't have enough funds to bootstrap yourself out of your seed funding to live all the way to your initial public offering or your initial product offering, there's a blockage, right? So I believe that money enables people to do so. There's nothing wrong with venture capital, and people paint that in a very wrong way. When they learn that you are a venture capitalist, it's like you just want all the money. But money enables, money empowers, money gives people opportunities. Money gives you the confidence to go out there in the world and say, this is what I do. And I think that's a really great idea because I think the moment we can have a foundation for startups to be able to say, I'm giving you this money so that you can build your MVP, so that you can be able to raise funds, which is going to give you traction, then the success rate, the failure rate of startups is going to decrease. And if it keeps on increasing, that means we just waste a lot of energy and effort and ideas and meetings and money investing it into something that's not going to. And the reason I went into venture capital is because I struggled to raise funds. And it was so hard because sometimes it hits you so much that you get a lot of no. And you're like, but everyone says my idea is good, but why is it that no one is giving me money? So the moment you can give people incentives to be able to accelerate their businesses, you're contributing to a lot of stuff. You're contributing to the economy, you're contributing to employment, you're going to go to GDP, but most governments don't want to admit that our GDP growth is connected to entrepreneurs. I saw this a few years back where they were calculating how many employees are employed by the state and how many employees are employed by the private sector. And people have a misconception and say, so the government has to increase employment. No, we need more entrepreneurs to create a job. That's the only way we can get the economy to be functional and to create a stable monetary system. And the moment we don't have that foundation of funds that are available to those who have the dreams, the visions, and the tenacity to get things done, then there's no progress. So we need a foundation. That's why I went into venture. I need the money, that's good, but I need the money so that I can also help others to get access to the things they never got access to before. And with technology now, and with blockchain, with the Internet of Things, softwares, it's way much easier to do crowdfunding. It's way much easier to establish connections. It's way much easier to learn about business resources and tools and to connect with like-minded individuals. It's way easier to connect with someone across the world. But if you don't have access to tools and resources and books and knowledge, then you don't have a foundation. You can't build a house without building a foundation. And that's where venture capital comes in. Because you might call it humane venture capital. It's for the people. The more you realize that your customers are people giving you money because they trust you, you can use that money to also build a foundation for those who are looking for it. Because there's no way anyone can do it. Some of us are here to enable people to have a better life. Some of us are here to show people direction on how to run their business. Some of us are here to accelerate people, to give them hope so that they can build companies that sustain and build generational. But it starts with the most basic thing, which is the foundation. And I love that idea because I think it changes the whole startup ecosystem where we don't need to fly all over the world anymore to go and look for seed funding or early startup funding. When you have that foundation, people can generate monetary value. They can have startups that are valuated at a higher equity rate, and they can have the confidence to build whatever they want to. So yeah.
I like the fact that you take your time to help us break down these ideas into a very comprehensive way that anyone who is a startup or who is an aspiring entrepreneur can actually understand the current state of affairs, most especially when it comes to starting a business, growing a business, and managing a business. Now, we're back to you, Dr. Lanre. We're back to you again. Okay. And I would like to ask this question, and I think this has been something in the minds of people also. We've seen indigenous African startups built from the ground up, and after a while, you find them selling. Do you think this is a really good approach to build and eventually sell out?
Okay, so Emmanuel, before I answer that question, I just wanted to share my own thoughts towards what Philip has said, and probably also share with it the experience that we have back.
Sorry, Dr. Larry, we can't really hear you. If you have maybe a headset, you could probably use. Maybe it will aid. Okay, now
Okay,
it's louder.
Okay, so I wanted to take some time so that you could continue the discussion with him, but it's okay. So what I wanted to say was I wanted to share with you and the entire audience the situation in Nigeria, which is slightly different from that in South Africa. So, and I've worked with several startups for 12 years. What I have seen in this part of Africa is that we require knowledge before funding. Okay, so I've been involved in certain government projects where grants were given out to startups. You know, there were business plan competitions and grants were given out to startups, and you would find out that so very many of these startups would come back the next year, still applying for those grants again. So I'm like, hey, I remember signing up onto 10 million naira for you last year. What happened to all of that? And then you start finding all every kind of excuse in the world. So for me, I think in Nigeria, what I would recommend would be knowledge before funding. Is funding a problem? Yes, but I think a bigger problem for startups is knowledge. So businesses have started off on the wrong footing. Businesses have started off putting the solution before the problem, and this is easier with tech startups. So I find a lot of young tech enthusiasts approach investors and say, hey, I have this solution. You know, the minute you start off from the solution point, you've lost it. Okay, every business starts off from the problem angle. Okay, so you're supposed to discover a problem first before you go look for the solution. This is what differentiates businesses that look for customers and businesses that customers look for. If you start off with a solution, you will keep looking for a problem in order to get money. If you start off with a problem and you find a solution to it, everybody that has that problem in your locality and even beyond will come looking for you. So what I found is there's a knowledge gap, one. The second thing that I find that disturbs me in our part of Africa is also mentorship. So like I said earlier when I was talking, there's so much talk going on in the ecosystem. On a daily basis, you go on Instagram, you go on Facebook, there's somebody on live speaking to young startups, speaking to entrepreneurs almost on an hourly basis back home in Nigeria. With all of the talk going on in the ecosystem, the question we should be asking is, why do we still have a high rate of startups failing? And the answer is not far-fetched. The answer is in mentorship. So we find a lot of talk going on in the ecosystem, but hand holding. If I were to start up a business today and somebody has already done that business probably 2 years before now, it's a no-brainer that if the person handholds me, I will have learned from that person all the mistakes that he made, and I won't be. I mean, I'd be really, really silly to make those same mistakes. Okay, that my mentor has made before now. So, two things that I find very worrying in this part of Africa is one, we need to get startups to have knowledge before funding. The second one will be around the area of mentorship. And I think, Emmanuel, in the course of me explaining this, I lost touch with the question you actually asked.
Okay. I believe you've been able to give us the answers to a large extent, and thank you for how you have answered. It's also interesting to know that you have been part of major projects to support the growth of startups, not just in Nigeria, but across Africa. Now, I would like to come back to Philip. Aside finance, what do you think are the other challenges that startups face that they need to approach properly in order to support their growth? Because we've heard investment, and we've just heard from Dr. Lanre that the failure rate is still very high. The number of startups that we have excelling are quite low compared to the ones that fail. So what are the other challenges aside finance that usually make our startups not sustainable? I don't really think anyone builds a business to fail, but why do we find the failure rate so high?
Low self-esteem. Sometimes it winds down to the entrepreneur. Most people don't believe in themselves, and we don't talk about it because we don't teach about it in school. But one of the things that I've learned is if you have low self-esteem, you don't believe you deserve something. You can say, I want to reach one, but I'm partially spiritual, so I learned this in business that if you can't raise funds if you are indifferent to money, if you are indifferent to business, if you are indifferent to personal development. Like, how you raise funds is mostly connected to your personal characteristics. And the next thing is knowledge. People don't read. People don't read. If you're an entrepreneur, you need to learn every single day. I read 5 books a month. I can tell you anything about any industry because I read, I learn. And because your opportunities are limited to what you're exposed to, the more you say, I'm going to stick to what I know. Sometimes you are oblivious to the world. You can't see the opportunities that are close to you. So most of the time, it's also the knowledge. The more you know, the more opportunities come. And opportunities are like the ocean. People go to the ocean with a teaspoon. They just say, this is what I want for myself. But the more you learn, the more you're exposed to a lot of knowledge, the more you connect with the people, the more it's easy for you to raise funds. And another thing is learning from others. Who's mentoring the people around you? You can't be starting a company, but you're hanging out with people that have nothing to do with your career in a club every Friday. It doesn't help you. Sometimes families are also part of that because we have the cultures. So most entrepreneurs fail because the people around them don't believe they can. That's why it's a very good idea for you to go and join a business incubator. Leave the negativity outside. Just be around people that are trying to solve the problems that you want to solve. Find someone who's already doing what you want to do and just learn from them. And then the other thing is just not knowing about what kind of business processes. Some people just want to work on it. You never work on it. Ever. I've never worked on it. And the reason is you can't brainstorm alone. It sucks. You can't sit by yourself and say, I'm making a decision. This is the right decision. That's why it's always amazing if you go outside and you work with them. It doesn't have to be someone in the same industry as you, but they can teach you. And that's where our educational system fails, because in school they teach you, don't ask your friend what they wrote in their assignment, right? Don't try to look at their answers. Don't go to the internet and search. Don't go to Wikipedia. We get this in university. And the moment you don't know, your knowledge is limited and your exposure is limited. That means your opportunities are limited in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways. And another thing is indifference to networks. Your network is the commodity. Your network is an asset. The more people you know, it's easy to sell you. And people are still scared to share their ideas because they think someone's going to come and steal. No one has time to steal your idea. And the other thing is, even if someone can steal your idea, no one has the time to invest their whole life into something they don't believe in. So just go out there and tell people what you understand. What is it that you can help them with? Because there will never be a time when everything is right. Ever. We'll always have problems. And most opportunities are in complaints. When people complain about something, just solve the problem. But try to connect with people. Try to connect with people that are doing the things that you want to do. There's a lot of power in that. Division is weakness. You can never ever have enough power when you don't have people around you that can support you. And the other thing it might be consulting, right? So what we do at Egypt is we deal a lot with people that still have ideas. They try to launch their business because research and development is also a valuable asset of the company. So we have a database over 3,600 software that we provide to startups in different industries to show them how to run the businesses efficiently and maximize that. Most people are scared to go and consult. They just want to do it themselves. They just go sit down with a consultant, say, I want to start this. What is it that I need? They'll tell you. And that's how you learn. But we get this a lot with clients who they have the money, they're able to buy whatever they can decide, they're able to manufacture whatever they can decide. But because business is so complex that the supply chain and the value chain needs to be efficient, that's where they mess up. And they don't want to go and ask for help. And another thing might be supporting each other. So one of the things that I've learned when I was going into business is always be happy for those who are doing better than you. You bless them, you're going to receive the blessing. So most people are envious, especially when they're entrepreneurs. If they see someone succeeding, they don't want to go talk to them and learn from them. They're just envious because they think that person is better than them. But it's mostly connected deep down to your beliefs as an entrepreneur. Because you can't lead people if you are envious towards people that are in the same industry. Don't be in the competition. Try to solve the problem. And yeah, that's it. Yeah. You're muted.
We still have a lot of time to come back to you. I would like to take a question from Dr. Lanre, then I'll come back to you, Philip. Thank you for all the insights you've shared with us. So to you, Dr. Lanre, I would like to say one of the things I have realized you have mentioned, and I've heard Philip mention it as well, is the role of mentoring. For startups to learn before they go into business, because the business environment is actually very complex. And that's why the failure rate is so high. So what are the possible support systems that you think should be put in place for these businesses to get the kind of hands-on-the-job skills and tools, and most especially resources that they need to have or know to enable them build a business that would transcend generations?
Okay, thank you, Emmanuel, once again. I'm already seeing that happen. There's a lot of support in the system, lately, concerning how to.
Dr. Larry, we're still finding it very uneasy to hear you.
This is really worrisome now. Can you hear me now?
No, we can't hear you still.
This is worrisome. Okay, perhaps you take the question for Philip and let me get my headset while.
Okay, let's continue, Dr. Larry. We'll probably try to. Okay, fine. We can hear you now. Yes.
So what I was saying was that there's so much already going on in the ecosystem concerning support in the area of resources. A whole lot more can be done. I see a lot of startup hubs already thinking along the line of mentorship, because honestly, for me, I think proper mentorship is probably a big winner. I see a lot of startups still make the mistakes that could have been easily corrected. There's so much you can learn 2 years into a business, okay, compared to what somebody that's been in business for 10 or 15 years has learned. And what we're saying is, for new startups, can we match them to mentors, especially in their area of specialization, so that it's easier for them to cross the I's and dot the T's? It's easier for them to ensure that the errors that were made in the past are not repeated. Because what I see is startups, a lot of startups die because they don't understand stuff like consumer behavior. The behavior of the 2021 customer is totally different from the behavior of the 1990 customer. So I also see a lot of startups die because they don't pay enough attention to what is going on in their environment. All of this can be sorted through proper mentorship. Okay, so it will be nice to see a scheme or a pattern where every startup is attached to a devoted mentor to handhold them through, especially the process, the period of their incubation, and also to assist them in the process of acceleration.
So I like the fact that Dr. Larry had mentioned matching early stage entrepreneurs with experienced entrepreneurs in order to enable the passage of knowledge, experience, and competence to these early stage entrepreneurs so that they can build thriving businesses. And this makes a lot of sense to ensure that we reduce the rate of failure. Now, coming back to you, Philip, we will still take lots of the conversations that you are having, have been having with us. Now, do you think that investors are taking advantage of our startups because they haven't grown to the point where they want to be? Because there are times when you find the terms and agreement that's been given to a startup, it looks like the founders are not even having anything. So do you think investors are taking advantage of startups?
Okay. Firstly, there's a lot of types of investors. Right? If you're a startup, I don't think it's a good idea for you to go to a venture capital, right, or an angel investor, because the main purpose, and this is what we don't share, because every investment firm has an investment thesis. So the moment you go to a venture capital firm and say, I need you guys to just angel invest it, you don't have any money. Okay, that's how that's capitalism. So the other reason is people get excited. So if you get funded, you excited about running the company, and you don't read the agreements, you don't negotiate because you feel like you don't have enough power. When you do dilution, this is something that's very important that startups do. When you first issue your shares, the number of shares and the types of shares, most startups just have ordinary shares. They don't understand what voting rights are. They don't understand what options pools are. They don't have a stable structure for their shareholders. So when they get an investor, they do that dilution, they issue more shares certificates, they end up losing voting power because they were all those stages of seed funding rounds. They're just excited. Okay, we're making money. We're gonna get profit. We're gonna break even. They just rush into making decisions because they don't They don't consult with who has experience when it comes to venture. And the other thing might be when you the number of people that are on your board also matters, right? So if you start a company alone and your idea is great and you get funded, you're most likely not to end up owning most of the shares in the company. So you need to have different shareholders that understand your vision, but also strategize on how do we keep owning. And one of the major mistakes startups make is when it comes to the exit strategy, they mess up. They don't know what kind of finance they use. So it can be equity finance or debt finance. Debt finance is okay because once you get to a point where you have your exit strategies in place, you can say, okay, after 10 years, I'm going to buy my shares back. And then you can own your company as a whole. So when it comes to the exit strategy, they mess up. And then how they also structure the investment turnaround time or when they should break even, they also make a lot of mistakes. So what I would advise is don't rush into taking money from people. Trust me, if 10 people are coming to you and say, we want to invest in you, that means your idea is good. So plan on what kind of investor is going to give you the money. Not everyone has good intentions, especially because I can always take the business away from you. And we see this all the time where people end up losing their business. They get fired from their own companies, working 15 years every day for 16 hours a day, and you end up losing everything because you don't understand how important it is that you structure your shareholding and your bylaws and the shareholders agreement with care. Most just take templates from the internet, they put it there, but they don't understand what it means. Right? They don't read. They don't read the agreement. But also, they think if I reject this investor, I might not get another opportunity. Because the reason they take advantage is because they just come with an agreement. They say, okay, we'll take 50% of your company, we're going to give you 50 million US dollars. We'll talk about the exit strategy. Or maybe sometimes the weakest point is when you have, let's say you have 5 shareholders in the startup, which are the founders, the directors. Investors develop personal relationships, right? So the moment you have weak partners, as an investor, I can always go to coffee and play golf with them. And then I can tell them, you know what, I think this company is not going to work. Just give me your shares. And Monday, when you go to the board meeting, the guy now owns 50%. 2 of your directors are sold out. Right? It's a business strategy, but it's also connected to your personal thing. What is it that you want? And the question that you asked previously was why people sell, which is really exciting because I think we now have this trend where someone will work on a startup and sell it to a big company. And for me, that's not something that I would ever do, unless that's how you want to build one. But if you want to work on a startup for a very long time, have a succession plan. Don't work for yourself, work for your kids. Because trust me, the moment you sell businesses, your companies to offshore corporates, we don't have any economic value. You can have as much money as you can, but it's gonna get to a point where you don't even have a success rate. You don't have generational wealth. Your kids are gonna start from scratch. So most people go into businesses not planning what happens after they die. And that's a really big problem. That's why you see businesses fail after the owner dies. The wife doesn't want anything to do with it. It's just the kids want to do whatever they want. So what is your succession plan? Are you planning to build a legacy or do you want to sell the business? And that's also when you raise funds, you have to think about that before you sign those agreements on what happens in the next 50 years when I'm not here. Who's going to run my business? Who's going to make sure that my hard work continues after I'm dead? And people just rush to decisions. It's an easy thing to understand shareholding, but people take it for granted because they don't understand how important it is. Because trust me, if you're a venture capitalist or you have a venture capital fund, the objective is to own as many businesses as you want. And for you, that's the rational workflow. But what about the entrepreneur? You might be an expert, you might graduate with BSc, you be a programmer, you're starting a software company. You don't have a lot of business acumen. You don't know about strategizing. You are good, yes, your skills are good, but how are they contributing to your heart? So people make the mistake of just getting excited. They just make decisions because they want them. And it's sad. It's really sad because it's not advantage. It's just you're not making the right decisions. You are the one who's messing up because you're just excited about the money, right? And another thing might be, I think governments might have, our governments might not be aware of this, but I think it was going to be better if we had governments that have a lot of business support structures. And even in schools, you're muted.
I like the fact that you're beginning to talk about the government, and that will lead me to ask Dr. Philip the next question about the role of government and regulatory agencies in monitoring the activities of startups. Dr. Philip, do we have you here? Okay, we don't have Dr. Philip. So then I would, sorry, Dr. Lanre, actually, Dr. Lanre, we don't have you here. So I would redirect this question to you again, Mr. Philip, that you tell us, do you think the role of government intervention, most especially trying to regulate startups, is, do you think it's necessary? Don't you think the government should focus on governance than trying to regulate a business that's actually contributing to the growth of the economy? Because we have seen situations in Nigeria where huge investments has been made in a particular sector, like the logistics sector, and you find out that in a particular state or environment, these startups can no longer operate because there has been regulations to stop their licenses, and they're out of business. So what do you think the role of government should be that fierce or strong when it comes to regulating startups? And what impact do you think this will have?
I think I'm just going to go back a little bit. So people have this misconception with government, right? Where they say, we don't need government. We need government. Okay? We need government so that the taxes we pay can take care of the people that are not in business. So the moment you see government as a wall that blocks you from succeeding, you're getting it wrong. The infrastructure that we have, the roads, the ministers, right, the presidential cabinet, those are the people that allow you to be able to have internet in your country, to be able to work online, to be able to import and export products so that your business can operate. So you can't just operate freely in that. It's a cyberspace, especially online business. The moment you're selling an online service, you're not contributing towards taking care of our social economy. You're not. So it needs to be regulated, especially online businesses, because online businesses are not regulated at all. It's just online, you can render a service, you use it, that's it. So I think when governments intervene, it is a good idea because we can have a sustainable economy. We can have a really good sustainable economy. It just matters on what kind of acts need to be amended and what kind of decisions need to be made around startups. But we need regulation, we need laws, we need to control, and we need to be able to monitor and track transactions. One of the biggest issues we have in South Africa is money laundering, for example. If you're running a business and I'm laundering money and I'm doing transactions with you, if you're not able to report that to the government because you're not being regulated, it might backfire on you, right? Because I might know that you're not regulated, so I can take my money, put it through you, and wash it, and then we continue business as usual. So it's really important because have money that's not been traced and not been tracked. And there are people that are active in the economy, but there's no history of transactions on their names. Is a big problem. It's a big problem. And once you also understand that if you have a business, your business is the people, right? So when you get your money from the people, you need to be able to pay your taxes so that you can create more infrastructure and opportunities for them in the background. So I think once we have a good structure that governments can put on startups that don't hurt them, but are for the benefit of our economies, that's a good thing. I don't mean creating curtailments around that and restrictions, but being able to see that they are active. What is it that they are doing? How are they contributing? Can we protect them when they are in danger? That's also important.
I think this is good from your opinion that we need to begin to look at the role of government in a positive way to see that they are trying to regulate, would also protect the customers. We have also seen startups in this part of the world where people have made investments and you find out that the startup no longer exists. So what happens to the funds that consumers or customers have invested in such startup? So I totally agree with you that we should have startups checkmate. Now, we know that you run a hub. Tell us how you think tech hubs can inspire innovation of startups in Africa. And that would be the last question before we
Okay,
your
so
final
it's not
words.
actually a hub. It's not actually a hub, it's a consulting. So our slogan is we are laying a foundation for the innovation sector, because I think the misconception that people have with consulting is it has nothing to do with wealth, it has nothing to do with success and business, it has nothing to do with the economy. But what we learned was if you have a foundation of services that are easily accessible to businesses and entrepreneurs and corporates that are less costly, then you're creating a ripple effect in the business economy. So what we did was I remember when we started, I told some of my business partners, I want to build a company where in the next 20 years, people will just walk into a building and say, I want to start a business, and they'll get all the services that they need at the cheapest possible way and in the most effective way. So consulting services, especially business consulting services, play a major role in our economy. And that's something that people don't understand. It's not about accounting, it's not about bookkeeping, it's not about business strategies, it's not about your supply chain, it's not about your value chain, it's not about your company regulations and compliance. It's not about your brand identity, it's not about your corporate identity. It's how those services build you a sustainable business. Because people miss how important the business model is. Your supply chain, for example, is a huge thing when you're running a business that sells products. So how do you make that efficient in a way that is going to allow you to run your business with less stress? How do you use that to connect with suppliers so that you can understand how they run their businesses and how they see the world? So you might call it a hub, but it's a hub because we're creating a turnkey business solution so that we can cater people that couldn't have access in the last 50 years to business services, especially online business services. They need to have those services so that they can have access to the marketplace and also to globalize their products and brands. So that plays a major role where they can have a foundation without going and doing a lot of research, wasting a lot of money to try and build their business for them. And then one of the most important ones is we have a small incubator where we go and do the business advisory, the mentorship, helping them structure their business with the corporate identity and the business plan. And that plays a major role.
I would like to cut you short. Mentorship again, you have mentioned, and this is good that we've heard all the things you have mentioned to help build a robust startup community in Africa. And now I would like to take your final words. What do you think startups should do from now to build a sustainable business? 30 seconds. What should startups do from now moving forward? Your thoughts in 30 seconds.
Go and seek out business processes that are automated and efficient. Learn something outside your industry. Connect with people. Stop trying to do things by yourself and try to build a business that's future-proof and plan that for your succession. Don't build it to sell it. Build it that all the people around you, your families, your community can benefit from that even when you're gone. And have enough confidence in yourself. Learn why the learn mentoring, learn how to code, for example. That's where
Awesome.
the future is going.
Learn mentoring, have self-confidence, connect and network with people. These are key takeaways from this discussion I've had with you continuously within this 1 hour period. And I have been able to pick these specific keywords that you have used severally. Thank you very much, Philip Sebole Masango, the lead founder and CEO of Eclipse Hub Proprietary Limited and a strategic intelligence member of the World Economic Forum. Thank you so much for your time. We are grateful to have you here at Digital Africa 9.0. We hope some other time in the future we could still call upon you to need your resourcefulness when it comes to this knowledge sharing hub that ensures that entrepreneurs can get resources from Digital Africa. Thank you once again for your time. We are ending this panel session. We would like you to click on your button to take you back to the backstage while we prepare for our next fireside chat. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.